25 cents per gallon bonus.
You want hot takes? No, I'm not going to apologize to Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up until the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome in. About set off the bench, wrong show. But the Justin Kenner Show with Kev Nash here today. The show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I had a weekend. I golfed. I drank. I smoked cigars. I don't know why people have to say it like, cigars as if you did anything illegal.
It's legal.
I'm just saying, but cigars, non-Cuban. So, they're still legal as far as that goes. But Mr. Kev Nash, welcome. How are we?
What up, though? You didn't think you were going to do a draft recap show without hearing from me, did you?
No, but I feel like the draft show we did last Thursday seemed like ages ago.
Definitely.
That's how long this draft was. That's how much happened in this draft. What a wild weekend. This might be the most memorable draft. And it's not just because my team was impacted the most by it. The storylines, the drama, the passion, the anger. There were tears. There was everything.
There was a team switch.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is at this point. But a lot to get into. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals coming up here around the corner.
Yeah, you will.
Did they improve their roster over
they
the
gained
weekend?
a fan.
Did they? We'll find that out. Cleveland, I love their draft. We'll discuss that. The Pittsburgh Buckeyes. I mean, there you go. Kev Nash's Steelers, / Buckeyes. There's that. The Reds are back in action tonight, coming up here in a bit. In fact, they start a series with the Cardinals. They're going to have Nick Martinez on the mound. Brady Singer will pitch tomorrow, and then Andrew Abbott will close the series out coming up on Wednesday. The Reds will look to win their fifth straight coming up here tonight following their sweep of the Rockies. Austin Hayes, Noelvi Marte, Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, you want to talk about three guys that have just been on a tear as of late. Austin Hayes, 12 games. Remember, he didn't start the season with the team. 12 games. He's 19 of 49. He's hitting .388 with 5 home runs and 13 RBIs in just 12 games back with the Cincinnati Reds. You look at the fact that some of in those same 12 games, Noelvi Marte since coming back as well. He's 16 of 44, hitting .364, 3 home runs, 15 RBIs, all in 12 games as well. So the Reds are getting those contributions from what are supposed to be role players. They're playing like superstars. Can they keep it going? They're going to have to as they get a series going with the Cardinals coming up here later on tonight. When we dive into those Reds, we're going to talk about just how good of a hitting team they are. Their run differential at plus 41 is number 1 in the National League. They're the best offensive team in the National League. It doesn't seem like it when we're watching this team. It's painful at times, but somehow, some way, they're the best offensive team in the National League. Did I say National League? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. Yes, National. Yeah. So football, baseball, everything. My brain is scrambled eggs at this point. The Reds hitting .254, 6th in Major League Baseball. They've scored 150 runs on the season, which is 3rd most in baseball. They're 2nd in runs scored in the National League behind the Cubs, and the 3rd overall in baseball behind the Cubs and the Yankees. 11th in team home runs, but 10th most strikeouts in all of Major League Baseball. We got a lot to talk about with your Cincinnati Reds coming up later on in the show. But Kev Nash did not take time out of his busy-ass day to come talk about, Terry Francona's all of a sudden resurging Cincinnati Reds. Just wanted to make sure I threw that out there. Let's talk about the draft. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. And the main reason to talk about the Cleveland Browns is it safe to say they were the story of the weekend?
I don't think they were the story.
I
think the guy that they drafted was the story of the weekend in the 5th round, that being Shedeur Sanders. He was the story of the weekend, hands down, from Thursday, him going undrafted, and then basically everybody in their mind was like, okay, well, we could see that, how we mathematically see how that fell. Fine. That's fine. He's not a first rounder. Obviously, the Browns are going to draft him with their first pick in the 2nd round. Oh, they didn't do that. They wanted to bolster up something else. They wanted to grab Quinshon Judkins from the Ohio State University. Cool. That's no problem. They're going to draft him with their 2nd pick. Oh, the Browns are not going to do that. Well, obviously, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do that. Oh, they're not either. Oh, wait. He's not getting drafted until Saturday. The 4th round goes by, and then the 5th round shows up, and then he finally gets his name called. You know, the reason I say he was the talk of the draft because of the popularity surrounding him and his family and his name and everything like that. But you know, when you look on social media, not only social media and all the like the blog sites and stuff like that are in it for the quote unquote clicks and in it for, you know, the social media interaction, even the .coms of ESPN would announce the Bengals draft Quinshawn Judkins, pass on Shedeur Sanders again. Like everything was titled around Shedeur the entire draft once the fall started. So you see that name, and then once he finally got drafted, basically there was a sigh of relief, I would say, from Mel Kiper. Yeah, basically Mel Kiper and everybody that was on the set for ESPN. I wasn't watching the draft on Saturday, but I mean, you couldn't help but to be locked in on the draft from the social media aspect, from a text message standpoint about, you know, how many Buckeyes were going, because, you know, everybody gets excited when the Buckeyes get drafted, no matter what team, but then they go to my team.
I think the neighbors here at 717 heard you. Now the draft. 4 Buckeyes in the first round, by the way.
Yes, sir.
Heard that every single time.
So it was an amazing weekend. Just so many storylines out there. I mean, forget the fact that Shedeur didn't get drafted into the 5th round. The fact that the first overall pick is an afterthought. Matter of fact, the second overall pick is basically an afterthought. Everybody's an afterthought right about now. Like nobody's talking about the guys that actually landed on teams and that went basically where everybody expected them to go. Everybody's talking about Shedeur. And I was talking to my brother about this. I was like, you know, the person the happiest Shedeur slid, Quinn Ewers. Because remember, coming out of high school, he was a perfect recruit. He was a perfect 10. He's the first perfect 10 recruit, and he barely got drafted too. So yeah, it was just so many things. And then not only that, the prank phone calls, and everybody's focused on the Shedeur prank phone call, but there's several other guys that got prank phone called. Tyler Warren, the big time tight end out of Penn State. Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver from Bama/Texas. Like lots of guys got prank phone called over the weekend. So it's just so many storylines with this NFL draft.
Yeah, and you know the prank calls happen every year, but oh my gosh, Shedeur, it happens to him, and now we got, what does Stephen A. Smith say? Ass whooping. The kid needs his ass whooped, is what Stephen A. Smith said. I'm like, my goodness. I was like, a lot of fans want the defensive coordinator. By the way, it is messed up. Like, I was a jerk when I was younger, too. Still a jerk now, let's be clear. But I was a jerk when I was younger, too. I do think it was a little, you crossing the line a little bit there. But no one got hurt, nothing like that. I'm not going to feel bad. Oh, man, you're going to make millions a couple picks later than what you would before. I don't feel bad from you for that perspective. But everyone out there, the defensive coordinator needs fired for his son for doing that. Man, if we're going to fire every coach for what their kids did, then Andy Reid needs to be fired too. Like,
that's for sure. That's for sure. That's 1,000,000% for sure. So I don't necessarily.
I don't lose sleep over this at all.
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe that he should be fired, but there is a line that says, "Hey, man, like there's going to be a discussion had with coach. Hey, like why are we leaving this? But I mean, like, shoot, like what do you want the coach to do? He's in his own home. Yeah. Like if you can't trust the people in your own home not to go through your stuff, then they don't need to be living there. You know what I mean? Like. Yeah, my iPad was in my office. The little rascal went in there and decided he was going to do this. I don't know what's stupider, him pulling that type of prank or his goofy friends actually taping it and putting it on social media.
That's what I said on the show earlier. I'm like, they ratted themselves out at the end of the day because this has been going on for years. They're just the only dumb ones that actually posted themselves doing it on social because of the Shedeur effect, though. Yeah. They knew it wouldn't go as viral doing it the no-name athletes, if that's what you want to call them, no disrespect. But yeah, it went viral, but they told on themselves. I had no clue that was the son of the defensive coordinator because I thought they were billing it at first as just Ole Miss frat guys. Yeah. They went to Ole Miss. Yeah, they started digging into it, and then the NFL got involved. And I mean, so for people that are unaware, every draft eligible prospect that's going to be drafted or whatever, they receive a phone and a phone number from the NFL. So only the NFL teams have this phone number. This isn't like they ran down to your local Boost Mobile and grabbed a phone for the night. Like there are provided phones from the NFL. So this line is strictly for you so you can get that call. And, you know, this is all for social media and it's all for the cameras. And it's a good look for everybody when things go right, when you get that true emotional reaction from an athlete getting drafted and have his dreams come true. But like it was just
It was just crazy. It was just crazy for something like that to happen to so many guys. And you know what? You're still a moment from young people. And I understand that this kid is young and stuff like that. And let's be clear, I've definitely made a prank phone call or two back in my day. But the prank phone calls back in my day were calling my buddy from down the street and having my cousin on the phone pretending it was a different girl that he had a crush on and stuff like that. Not saying, hey, man, you got to get drafted to the NFL and your life's work is about to finally pay off. Like, that was scummy, man.
Only scummy if they didn't get drafted. Every prank call went to somebody who did get drafted. Technically.
Not Isaiah Bond.
I'm not going to lie.
Not Isaiah Bond.
Well, it should have been James Bond then, because no. Think back to when we're 18 to 22 and we get our hands on Shedeur Sanders' number. I've challenged everyone on this today. I, at 35 years old right now, could say, no, I would have done the right thing. I can't tell you at 18 to 22 years old, if I had my hands on Shedeur Sanders' number and I had a chance to prank call him and look cool and funny in front of all my friends, I cannot promise you I would not have done the same thing. And I've challenged everyone to. I was going to challenge you. Could you promise me that at 18 to 22 years old that you would not have done that? It's okay.
You're going to call me a goody-goody. You're going to call me a goody-goody.
I'm not. You're not saying I'm right or wrong.
I wouldn't have did that. I would definitely not have done that. I just think that's foul. I just like, nah, that's crossing the line. Like I said before, like the prank calls that I did, order a pizza to my buddy's house and stuff like that. Have my cousin on the phone on a 3-way call. Like, yeah, this is Keisha from, you know what I'm saying? Fifth period science, knowing dang well it's not. Just like, oh man, how'd that phone call go with Keisha last night? Oh man, yeah, we're supposed to be linking up. No, it's not. That was my cousin. She ain't call you. Ha ha. Like, that's the type of stuff that we was on.
He didn't get the girl, and he didn't get $1 million contract a little bit later. Shedeur still got his money, and he got it in Cleveland. I think his punishment was not dropping in the draft. It's that he still has to go to Cleveland. After all of that, it's one thing to go number 2 overall to Cleveland, but you drop 5 rounds and still have to go to Cleveland for a lot less money, and you got to battle it out. Not with Joe Flacco anymore. You're battling Dylan Gabriel, which that's the one that pissed me off more than anything. The Browns were killing it in the draft. They were killing the draft. I loved everything that they did. I did not mind the trade back. It took a little bit for me to I was uneasy. I didn't really want Travis Hunter. I wanted Travis Hunter, but I didn't. I didn't want a guy that is known he's a unicorn because he can play both sides of the ball. And I said, well, this is not high school. You don't have to play both sides. And if you're just drafting him as the wide receiver, is he a Jamar Chase wide receiver that's going to instantly put you in position to be a Super Bowl contender? No. Defensive back, is he going to come in and shut down all the Jamar Chases of the world twice a season? Is he going to shut down, you look at the wide receiver core in Pittsburgh now, is he going to shut them down too? You don't know. I didn't like that at number 2. So they trade back to get Mason Graham. Love that. You get another pass rusher on that same defensive line to enhance the pass rush attack along with Myles Garrett. No problem with that. I already like the Browns secondary to begin with. So now you increase that pass rush and only makes the secondary better. Like that. Now you get an additional first-round pick for next season in a draft that's way better from a quarterback perspective. And theoretically, the team that you traded with in Jacksonville, they should be better next season. But I'm not 100% sold on Trevor Lawrence. I want to be, but a year ago at this time, we were talking about Jacksonville taking that next big step to be one of the top teams in the AFC, and they were picking that high in the draft for a reason. As far as that goes, Cleveland very well could have 2 top 15 picks next year. It could be their own. They could finish anywhere in the top 15 to the top 10. Jacksonville, the same thing. So I loved what they did right there. Then they got the additional second-round pick, and you start to look at what they started doing. I love the Carson. They go get the linebacker from UCLA. He was a finalist for the top linebacker in all of college football. The Browns, I love the fact that everyone talks about offense, but they went defense with their first 2 picks because that defense did regress last year. I love that they loaded up there. And then from there, they went all in. You go get Quinshawn Judkins and Harold Fannin Jr. I was telling Jacob on off the bench on Friday before we left, I'm like, I want Trevion Henderson and I want Harold Fannin. He goes, well, Harold Fannin might be a little high to take him that high or whatever. I said, no, I don't care. I would love the idea of, again, even if it is Joe Flacco, when you have David Njoku and you have Harold Fannin Jr., I love that 2 tight end attack. There's a reason they didn't go wide receiver in the draft. They're still maneuvering to try to get one through trade or free agency at this point. But I think they're going to lean into the shorter attack. They're going to lean into their tight ends. They're going to go back to running the football heavily and then take advantage of the athleticism, of course, and what they're hoping could be a healthy and talented Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy, who caught for 1,300 yards last year without anybody throwing in the football. So I like what the Browns did. And then to get the running back out of Tennessee, who was the talk of a lot of college football for most of the season, and to get him as late in the draft as they did, I loved every single one of those picks. But Dylan Gabriel, I did not want them to even take a quarterback. This is before I even thought that there was a chance that they would even be tempted to take Shedeur later in the draft. I didn't want a quarterback. You got the 2 first-round picks next year. I was like, just go all in with Flacco right now. You have 2 draft picks. You have an owner that's aggressive. You could package those up and move up in next year's draft. They've proven that they're willing to do that or back, and go from there. The Dylan Gabriel pick made no sense, especially in the 3rd. If you take Cam up where they took Shedeur, I'd be like, whatever. You got to take a quarterback to at least take a chance on one, right? It wouldn't hurt. They take him. I was pissed off about that, but I was like, I'm going to ignore that one and focus on the good. The 2 great running backs that they got. Love the Harold Fannin Jr. Love the 2 defensive guys. Love the additional first-round pick for next season. Love the additional second-round pick this year. The 3rd-round pick that they got for Amari Cooper, that's who they picked Dylan Gabriel with. That's what pisses me off. You fleeced, all right, the Buffalo Bills getting a 3rd-rounder for a wide receiver that you got when he was in his prime for a 5th-rounder, and now you were able to get a 3rd-rounder back, and you wasted it on Dylan Gabriel. That's when I started to go a little sour on the Cleveland Browns when it came to this draft, because you were doing so good. And I see some people in the chat bringing up the fact that, well, ownership, that the Haslams forced Shedeur on the Browns. I'm here to tell you, I don't mind the Shedeur Sanders pick. Mm-hmm. I don't mind it in the 5th round. I don't mind it. You got a first-round talent quarterback in the 5th round, and guess what? You get a first-round talented wide receiver or quarterback in the 5th round, and you lose all the pressure of him having to work out now. Because if Shedeur Sanders doesn't work out, whether it's fair or not, whether it's right or not, whether it's accurate or not, his whole reputation and his whole ego and everything took a major hit this past weekend. If he doesn't work out in Cleveland, it will no longer be viewed as Cleveland's fault. You take Shedeur Sanders number 2, it's the quarterback cemetery in Cleveland. That's where your career goes to die if you are Shedeur Sanders, right? Now, instead of Cleveland trying to figure out Shedeur Sanders is trying to figure himself out in Cleveland now. That was a huge win for Cleveland. If he works out, it's great. If he doesn't, Cleveland's off the hook. You got 2 first-round picks next year. Kev, I don't mind it. My biggest problem in Cleveland was the Dylan Gabriel pick. I don't care that they didn't know that they were going to select him later. You don't get a quarterback in the 3rd round that you know is not going to be your guy. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he can be. Maybe he turns into a Russell Wilson. Maybe he turns into something like that. Whatever, I'll deal with that crow later. But for right now, I loved what they did. I hate the Dylan Gabriel pick because, honestly, that's what – if you go – Xavier, I wish they would have gone the Xavier route. Xavier Watts, he was available. If Cleveland would have taken Xavier Watts there and then Shedeur later, I would have said it's an A++ draft for the Cleveland Browns. I can't go there now because they ended up creating more of a problem. You traded for Kenny Pickett in the offseason. You just signed Joe Flacco a week before the draft. You still technically have Deshaun, not technically. You have $46 million guaranteed dollars a year. Deshaun Watson still on your roster. Now you have 5 quarterbacks. No Deshaun's going to be out for this upcoming season. You're probably going to move on from Dylan Gabriel, most likely, but then you just threw out a 3rd-round pick for no reason. It just doesn't make sense. You have a quarterback-heavy draft next year. I feel like you have to play. I'm getting ahead of myself. Takeaways from what I said about that. I like the Shedeur pick because of where they got it. I don't think it hurts the Browns. If he pans out, it's great. And if it doesn't work out, they're off the hook. They didn't ruin some quarterback. He's viewed as the bad guy. Right, wrong, fair, foul, accurate or not, he's viewed as the guy that you got to go win the job. You got to go sustain the job. You got to go win yourself now. It almost takes – now, Cleveland has responsibility, don't get me wrong, but it does. It lets them off the hook because they're the goodies that they save the day. We'll see what happens. I find this all fascinating. Cleveland has created at least a lot of content for the offseason.
Yeah, from my perspective, once training camp officially gets here, it's not just one quarterback battle. It's like 2 separate quarterback battles. I think you have the veterans battling it out for the starting spot, that being Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, trying to figure out who's going to be the starter there. I think that Joe Flacco has a leg up on Kenny Pickett, but I mean, they brought Kenny Pickett there for a reason. And then you have Dylan Gabriel, the 3rd-round pick, and then you have Shedeur, the 5th-round pick, battling it out. So who's going to stay on this roster? Because Flacco or Kenny Pickett, one's going to be a starter, one's going to be in a backup. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur are battling to see who's going to make the roster. No team is going to carry 4 quarterbacks. Nope. So one of them dudes ain't going to make it. And something that I firmly believe in, and both of them have this ton of starting experience. Shador started since day one, 2 years at Jackson State, 2 years at Colorado. But what people forget about Dylan Gabriel, and I know the last time we saw Dylan Gabriel, they were getting smacked by the Buckeyes, but let's not forget that Dylan Gabriel's team was the number one football team in the country heading into the college football playoff undefeated. But Dylan Gabriel started 2 years at UCF, started 2 years at Oklahoma, and started his final season at Oregon. So he has like about 60 starts underneath his belt. So one of the biggest things that helped out a guy like Bo Nix was all those starts, all those reps that he had at the college level. And I think that's a main reason why he played so good as a rookie in this league. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Dylan Gabriel is not going to be the third guy, the guy that's going to be, bouncing between the active and the practice roster all season long. I know people want Shador to be that person because, people love excitement. There's a big name value that goes along with it. But I don't think it's a lot that he's going to be in that position, that he's going to be a part of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I've got rid of Kenny Pickett 2 days ago. I'd have said, Kenny Pickett, see ya. We're wasting draft picks. You might as well waste free agent money. You did with Deshaun, so you might as well just move on. The reason is because something happens to Flacco, who's the favorite to be the starter. What's the point of putting Kenny Pickett in to be the backup? Like, you have 2 draft picks in the first round next year in a quarterback-heavy draft that many believe that's one reason why they traded back was we got to just go on the quarterback next season if what's available. But you drafted Shador, so now you need to know. You only have 1 year to know if Shador's the guy or not. And you could say, well, whether he's the guy or not, you need to know as much as you can in this upcoming season. And he starts, whether Shador, either he's eliminated himself from possibility because he's that bad in preseason and this, that, and the other. And I don't think many, even some of the biggest critics, expect him to be that bad to where right away that he's not good enough. I think he needs the regular season reps. I think you start the season with Joe Flacco. I think you go, and obviously it's to go beat Dylan Gabriel for the backup spot. Maybe Dylan Gabriel's the quarterback of the future. Doubt that. But the bottom line is you got to give. Kenny Pickett is in the way. He doesn't deserve anything. If you're going to Kenny Pickett at any point throughout the regular season, and many people believe it's done even before you get to him, you need to know what you have in Shador Sanders before you even start to look to next year's quarterbacks in the draft and go from there. The other scary part is if Shador is the guy and those reports are true about him basically interviewing the teams and not the teams interviewing him and all this stuff, that ego is going to come back even more. It's going to come back even more. It's going to breed a whole nother level of, see, I told you so, see, I told you so. Now, a lot of athletes like to do the see, I told you so. But I don't know what's true and what's not with some of those things that come out over the weekend. A lot of stuff gets leaked so that they could justify not making certain decisions. But when you see the way him and his dad carry themselves, it's not that crazy to read some of those things and be like, yeah, I could see that. Confidence isn't always a bad thing. Cockiness isn't always a bad thing. But I've said this for years. You got to be good enough to back it up. When Baker Mayfield was winning with Cleveland, his cockiness and arrogance, it was fine. You want to call out Duke Johnson's money? Not a fan of it. Just keep winning his football games. You're at Oklahoma and you're crotch chopping the opponent and all this stuff. Don't like it, but keep winning football games. Go win a Heisman. He did. All of those things. But when Baker started playing bad, now his cockiness is a problem. Now we move on. Aaron Rodgers, the Packers dealt with his cockiness and arrogance and annoying personality for over a decade, but he won him a Super Bowl, won a ton of games, won 4 MVPs, started to get a little older, not as good. Now the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Now we got to move on. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers, you carry yourself like Aaron Rodgers, but you're the old Aaron Rodgers, not Aaron Rodgers of old. You're not worth it. Shador has to go out and be worth the noise. I just don't think his talent's worth the noise that he creates when he comes in. That's the problem. Not the problem for me. That's the problem that I see. Because if he is Joe Burrow good, they don't care about anything else that comes with it. But if he's not Joe Burrow good and he's Baker with the bum shoulder good, now it's not good enough. And I see I see that being a thing as well.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. We're having this discussion with everybody and their mom over the weekend. Well, why did he fall? Why did he drop? Why did he drop? How come nobody's picking him? How come? I think it's just a litany of things. It's not just one reason why he dropped. I think probably the main reason he dropped is because of the tape. And we at home watch the game from the TV set. We don't watch the game from the all 22. There's not one reason why. I think the main reason why is the tape, and then you go into the other stuff. And I don't think there's a race element involved. I think there's a cultural element involved. I think that, there's still, people in the NFL that see the new culture as an issue. Having your own basically YouTube channels and things like that, and being brash and being
Micah
cocky.
Parsons is dealing with that a little bit with the Cowboys, and
but like obviously we know it's different from the quarterback position. I mean, Colin Cowherd, one of the greatest media personalities of all time, he banged on Tony Romo left and right for hat on backwards guy. He tried to defend Shador at the NFL Combine when he showed up with his hat on backwards. But there he even got to a point where, well, you know what? Hey, man, maybe, dad telling everybody and their mom that, hey, he's not going to play for certain teams made him fall. But my rebuttal to that is, hey, man, he said the same thing about Travis Hunter, too. But Travis Hunter's tape is so good that they don't care.
Talent worth the noise.
Yeah, so I firmly believe, like, if we're going to play a pie chart of why he fell, I'm going to put 70 to 75% of the reason he fell on the tape. And then I'll put 25% on the personality aspect. I think it's the tape is part of the reason that he fell. So there's going to be a lot of corrections, a lot of learning. And obviously these guys are not a finished product when they come to the NFL. So he's got to start from scratch. And I think that people talking about like, oh man, Shador's been humbled. He's been humbled. Y'all don't know the Sanders family. This is Deion Primetime Sanders. When has humility ever been a part of the brand or a part of their MO? It's not going to be humble. He's not a humble kid. That's fine. But like you said, you don't have to be humble when you're throwing touchdowns. Yeah. But when you throw interceptions or taking sacks or not playing good football, that'll get you cut.
Yeah, if someone says, Kenner, I'm sure you want Shador to be humbled and to tone it back a bit. I was like, I just want to throw touchdowns. I don't give a rip. In fact, when he does that stuff, while he's good, it only enhances it. Because, by the way, we saw that media machine go at Colorado. We saw in Colorado the first month of the last two seasons, Colorado was at its peak brand-wise. That's when they started out 3-4-1 both years. You have every celebrity in the books heading to Boulder. Shador is kind of him and Travis Hunter are the face of that turn in Colorado, right? Like, and they were the face of the fun. I mean, I remember that Colorado State game. That's the two biggest non-brands in football going head to head. It was the two biggest non-branded football game I could think of in recent college football history, and it was because of that. But they're winning. He's playing lights out, all that stuff. He does that in the NFL, and he's carrying himself that way. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. But I think a lot of, people are like, we're really trying to dissect Shador Sanders, the football player. And I think that personality got in the way. And I think he was used to getting that personality, never got in the way up to this point.
Right.
I think it finally did. And we'll see what happens. Ultimately got drafted. Now it's up to, now you can go put that talent on display in the NFL and either prove people right or prove people wrong. But either way, it's going to be for some good radio.
Oh yeah. Most
drama, all that fun stuff. It is what it is. If Pittsburgh would have picked him up later in the draft, how would you have felt about it? Is this a disaster waiting to happen in Cleveland?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. Will it be the same in Pittsburgh, or is it because it's Cleveland?
Okay, I think it's because it is Cleveland, because I think the fan base is going to want to see Shador. And I mean, we see this all the time. Every time there is the new shiny toy, people want to see the new shiny toy. They don't want to see, all right, man, we saw Flacco already, man. We saw what Kenny Pickett did with the Steelers. Let's see what Shador has. But by all accounts and by all the productivity at the college level, Dylan Gabriel has been a better quarterback at UCF, at Oklahoma, and at Oregon than Shador has been. But people want to see Shador. They don't want to see Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel. That's an unfortunate spot for it. When I let it die down a bit, I'm like, okay, coming out of the draft, I'm focused on where he was drafted, Dylan Gabriel. But like where he's drafted is what I'm hung up on. But if Dylan Gabriel's taken this was a very deep draft, actually. Like we was talking about with the guys earlier. A lot of teams got some guys that are going to help them win right away in the 5th and 6th round. That's not normal. I'm not saying that guys don't come out of the 5th and 6th round and help you. But there was a lot of highly graded talent still being taken later in the draft. Usually people unload on their 5th and 6th, 7th round picks because that's just, you know what I mean? Those are all gamble players. You're gambling at the top of the draft, but you're less for sure things, if that's what you want to call them, are sitting back there. That wasn't the case. There was actually, I read something earlier today that said this was the least amount of movement in the back end of the draft in over 10 years. That's how deep this draft was. People wanted to hold on to their spots. Ironically enough, Cleveland did trade up to get Shador, technically. So we'll see what happens. Let's talk about the rest of the AFC North. We'll talk about Kev Nash's Steelers, of course, coming away, obviously, with a Buckeye pass rusher and a Buckeye quarterback. The Pittsburgh Buckeyes, Kev Nash's Pittsburgh Buckeyes. We'll get to all of that. We'll react to the there you go. There you go. We'll be right back. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We'll be right back. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash. We reunite again.
Once again,
I need you to show up on a day where nothing happened the day before. That way you earn that free 99 show appearance. But we welcome you guys back again. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Wow, like what a weird weekend with the draft. Obviously, we talked about all that. Last thing on the Browns here. I do love the Quinshon Judkins and the Samson pick from Tennessee. I think that those are two very good gets right there. Some people are mad that they got two running backs and that they got another tight end when they already have one. You even like Harold Fanden.
Absolutely. He is a monster. He's a monster. So people that's more familiar with the show when I used to be on a regular basis, one of my best friends, John Gibson, he played football for Bowling Green. He does the radio calls up there. And I went to a game like 2 years ago, and this skinny kid playing tight end. I was like, who's the wide receiver playing tight end? He's like, he going to the league. I was like, yeah, right. It's like, yeah, he's going to the league. He's that freaky of an athlete. All he need to do is put on like 35 pounds of muscle. And then 35 pounds of muscle later, he's balling out against Penn State, balling out against Texas A&M. And now he's playing for the Cleveland Browns in the third round. He's the third best tight end in the draft, hands down. I mean, they're comparing him to Jimmy Graham. Like, that's the type of athleticism he has. Jimmy Graham when he played with the Saints. So, he's a monster, man. As far as the Browns getting two running backs, I mean, I think it's clear as day that, the Nick Chubb days are over. Jerome Ford, thank you for your service type of vibes. Hey, man, they're rebuilding the roster. And we talked about this on the Thursday show heading into the draft. It was like, hey, man, like, people are so focused on the quarterback. There's obviously a lot of things wrong with this roster outside of the quarterback. I think it would be beneficial for them to trade the pick and get a whole bunch of new talent on that roster. So them a fusion of talent, and I mean the second round pick with the additional linebacker, I think that's telling you everything in the world about the injury situation with JOK. Yep. Like, I don't think he's going to be back for the start of the season. So you go ahead and draft a high caliber linebacker to fill into that spot. You go ahead and get Quinshon. You get Samson from Texas. All right, man. Like, you guys have battled it out for whoever's going to be the starter. You can have like a thunder and lightning type of situation going on in the backfield. And also with the Harold Fanden Jr., like, let's not sit here and act like Njoku is like 22 years old anymore. Like, Njoku's probably like, 29? So, like, he's getting up there in age. Yeah, he's still very good. But, hey, man, dudes don't stay on your team forever. You have to replace them. So I think it's a great pick for the Browns.
Yeah, and on top of that, too, like, was there going to be a franchise-changing wide receiver? The Browns are in that weird spot. I don't think they know. They know they have something with Cedric Tillman, but they don't know exactly what he is. Jerry Jeudy was their number one wide receiver last year, but there's something about Jerry Jeudy, Kev, where I think it's going to take a lot more for people around the league to truly look at him as a number one wide receiver. He was their number one wide receiver last year. But let me ask you, if he has back-to-back 1,200-yard seasons, will he be viewed differently?
Absolutely.
Because it was a breakout year last year, but I think people do need to see, the story. It was a great storyline that he had a breakout year last year with the carousel of quarterbacks throwing on the football. But it's like, you kind of need to see it consistently. That's one thing you haven't seen with Jerry Jeudy. If Tillman's a legit number two and Jerry Judy's your legit number one, is that Jamar Chase, T. Higgins? No. Is it DK Metcalf and Pickens in Pittsburgh? No. But that's where, okay, how do you stand out? How do you do it different? You have David Njoku, and then you go obviously counter it with Fanden. So I love the four of those pass catchers right there, whether it's Joe Flacco, whether it's Kenny Pickett, whether it's Dylan Gabriel, whether it's Shedeur Sanders, whoever it is this upcoming season, there's weapons there. And then don't forget about Quinshon Judkins and, of course, Samson too. So they had no playmakers last year. They have playmakers now. Young and experienced, but it's a semi-rebuild in Cleveland, and this is how they find out. I see like some others, like Troy and others, are in here saying, Browns still do not have a quarterback. I don't think anyone's arguing that they do, but they very well might. Kev, what if the Browns would have taken Shedeur with the number 2 pick? Would we be saying, well, the Browns still don't have their quarterback? I mean, that would be viewed as their quarterback. They still got a guy that could have gone number 2 overall in the 5th round. What if he is the guy? Yeah. What if he does hit? Then that's a very good thing for Cleveland, because you have now super young talent that doesn't have to be paid for 4 or 5 years. Well, 4 years at least, three to 4. Sorry, because some of the options are outside of that, or the tag. But and you know what I mean? Like you're in a good spot if you're Cleveland, if one of those hits, as far as that goes this season. I think that defense has to hit. I think they could be a 8-9 win, 10-win team, 10 at the most. They'll flirt with the wild card. They're not winning the division, but they'll be competitive. They'll be way better than they were last year. And if not, you got 2 first-round picks. So back to the good old days of Cleveland. Pittsburgh, how did you evaluate their draft? Obviously, they get a very good pass rusher. They went safe in the first round. They were intrigued. You could tell they were tempted with the Shedeur thing. No, they weren't. With watching how far Shedeur dropped, they weren't tempted. I don't even think it was heavily considered. Do you?
I don't think so at all. I think that they stuck to their board and they stuck to what their plan was. I think, just from all the Pittsburgh Steelers blogs I read and all the podcasts and everything like that, it was basically split down the middle. Get the quarterback, get Shedeur. And then there was another part of it that said, hey, man, they gave up 300 rushing yards in the playoffs to Derrick Henry, and 200 to Derrick Henry and another 100 to Lamar Jackson. Fix the defensive front. Get more depth on the defensive front, because the guys that you have outside of Cam Hayward aren't any good. So that side won. They said, you know what, we're going to fix the defensive line. So they got Derek Harmon out of Oregon/Michigan State. So we're very familiar with him, being Buckeye fans. He was a game wrecker. He was the only guy on that Oregon defense that basically did anything in that Rose Bowl. You go back to the October game, he was a wrecking ball. He was a wrecking ball and for them. So then you get Caleb Johnson. People had him rated as the 4th running back on the board. You needed to replace Najee Harris. So you do that with Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, a more zone scheme running back that fits them better than Najee did. Then you go back to the defensive side of the ball with 2 picks, one being Jack Sawyer, Captain Jack from the Ohio State Buckeyes, and then Yaya Black from Iowa, who weighs over 350 pounds. So it's been a mandate from whomever, be it, the president of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mr. Rooney, or the head coach, Coach T, or the GM and Khan, to say, fix the run defense, because that's what they did. I mean, Jack Sawyer wasn't like one of these elite pass rushers that's going to go out there in the NFL and get you freaking 15, 20 sacks. But what he is very good at is the run, very much like Hubbard was with the Cincinnati Bengals. So you get a run stuffer, you get multiple run stuffers on that defensive side of the ball. And then obviously, you roll the dice and see what Will Howard really has later in the 6th round. It's obvious that the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably still waiting on the Aaron Rodgers situation. If he comes, he comes. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Is their mindset that they're going to roll out there with Mason Rudolph and Will Howard be the backup quarterback? I'm good with it.
Yeah, because you could not go the Shedeur route and risk a quarterback room.
Exactly.
Of Aaron Rodgers. And
exactly.
If Aaron Rodgers, does that scream? So let me ask you, if assuming the theory here is that Aaron Rodgers is still in play, if we twist it and there is no Aaron Rodgers, do you think Shedeur becomes more of an option?
I don't think so. I wouldn't mind if it was Shedeur, but I just think from the way that they were building the team, they're building the team to be big and physical. Shedeur is not big nor physical. Will Howard is humongous.
He had a lot of Josh Allen comparisons, just that big body, big frame. Will
He's
Howard,
a better athlete than Shedeur.
Did they run him a lot at Ohio State? I mean, I watched Ohio
Not
State.
Until the really just ran him.
It was awkward. He runs
once.
awkward, but like he's capable of it.
Yeah. They ran him in the national championship game and a little bit versus Texas.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, they're testing it out. We'll see what happens as far as Pittsburgh goes. But yeah, Sawyer to Pittsburgh. I was like, okay, good. Cincinnati didn't get him. Pittsburgh gets him. So there's that. What about the Ravens? What did you think about the Ravens? And they went, obviously they went ahead and took a chance. They were a little aggressive with their drafting as well in the 2nd round. Look, I love who they got in Malachi Starks. Yeah. That pissed you off.
Yes.
Because that was a typical rate. That's why the Ravens are the Ravens. But out of Marshall, there is an edge rusher named Mike Green who's dealing with some off-the-field issues. Take those off-the-field issues away. Mike Green is a for sure top 15 pick in the draft. And now he fell out of the 1st round, kind of, because he was he fell into the 2nd round. The Ravens take him. From a pure talent perspective, you got one of the best pass rushers in this draft and one of the best safeties in this draft. The Ravens just reloaded on defense. They have a lot of noise, though, with their kicker. Now you have more noise with the guy they took in the 2nd round. A little bit of a gamble here for the Ravens, but I think they can afford to take a gamble here. Their defense is pretty stout as it is. But if this kid gets cleared of whatever that's going on, they just got 2 kick-ass defensive players at the top of this draft.
Absolutely. I mean, we talked about the Malachi Starks situation, and
Jones too. I like the offense a lot. Sorry, but
you're good. You're good. Picks. So like all those guys are going to be impact players for the Baltimore Ravens, and that's the thing about it. We talk about teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers who are in the need of a quarterback, and they're drafting like in the 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 spots or whatever, year after year after year. And so you have to kind of like dabble in the best player available / need position. Then you talk about teams that aren't good at football that constantly are drafting in the top 5. So we got to draft a quarterback, draft a quarterback. The Baltimore Ravens and Kansas City Chiefs, luxury picks. Like, oh, we can draft a safety. You're not going to draft a safety in the top 5 unless it's like Ed Reed or somebody like that or Sean Taylor. So they're able to probably get the best safety in the draft at the back end. And remember when they did that before, they got Kyle Hamilton. These are luxury picks when you're this well of an organization and when you already have your quarterback in place and you don't need that many things. The Mike Green situation, I'm going to tag it from a different angle.
I don't even know what it is. I
it's
pretty bad.
He has an R-word allegation from high school. That's why he was at Marshall, because he was going to Virginia Tech. And then another R-word allegation while in college. And that is why I say that the Shedeur situation has to be about the tape. If the Baltimore Ravens, like you just talked about, are dealing with situations from their kicker, Hall of Fame kicker, I might add, and go ahead and draft a dude with 2 R-word allegations attached to his name in the second round, you know why? Because he can ball. That's why. So if you can ball, they don't care. They don't care about your dad. They don't care about he has a YouTube show. Can he ball? And I just firmly believe that, hey, man, there was a lot of teams out there that didn't think Shedeur could ball well enough. And then the other stuff on top of it, because this dude is a designated pass rusher. He's not going to be in on first down or second down. He's going to be in there on third down, and they're going to say, go get the quarterback. But he has these 2 allegations, 2 separate allegations, very serious stuff. But the tape shows he can ball. So they drafted him.
Yeah, and I want to go back to a very controversial sports topic, but you go back to the Kaepernick stuff too. My big takeaway on that was, and I didn't think it was that controversial. I just said, look, regardless of what you think and what he was standing up for or not, his talent to me was not worth the noise that he was making coming in. I felt like if Lamar Jackson was going to try and take the same exact stance that Colin Kaepernick had made, I still think teams don't push him off to the side, right? Kaepernick was solid. He a very Jared Goff type of quarterback in regards to you could win with him. You can get to a Super Bowl with him, right? Like and honestly did some things that were a lot different than Jared Goff. But his talent wasn't worth the noise, whether I want to disrespect the noise, but you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like the noise that would come with him. That's what, and that's what it comes down to with all of these situations. And every situation is different. Deshaun Watson, everyone acts like Cleveland was the only one that was lining up trying to get him. That was not true. Cleveland was in line with a lot of teams to get Deshaun Watson. There was a lot of noise with Deshaun, but his talent was worth the noise. Guess what? Now Cleveland has made a firm stance against Deshaun Watson. We don't watch it anymore. Why? Because they saw the error in their ways and didn't want to support somebody who made some of those mistakes in the past, or because you're somebody who made those mistakes in the past and now you can't ball. I think we know the answer to that one. Because if Deshaun was still really, really good, the ownership was fighting like hell for him. That's what happened. You couldn't be noisy. You could be messy. You could be noisy and messy, but you got to be good. And if you're not good, good luck. And if you are good, more power to you. Green's an example of that, as you were saying earlier. Deshaun was that. A lot of guys, Aaron Rodgers. What teams are doing now is, okay, he's noisy, he's messy, but is there enough talent still left in there that makes him worth it? The Jets thought so 2 years ago. They thought less of it last year, and they thought 0 of it this year, and that's why they moved on. So is what it is. All right, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2, we'll dive into the Cincinnati Bengals side of things. I've got some Reds content around the corner as well. More 1410 ESPN Radio when we come back.